Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. We've had July kind of off as a school board. It is August. We have a special meeting this evening with a lot of great presentations. Before we get started, though, Mrs. Haywood, you notice she's not here this evening. She's still visiting family in Rhode Island, so we wish her safe travels as she returns back to her neighborhood here soon. But she's got some grandchildren to take care of, so she's having a great time, I'm sure. But with that, we are back to business. It's almost school, getting ready to start right around the corner. Dr. Shandor.
Thank you, Mr. Medford, board members. Good evening. First, I want to start off by, you might know there's a stranger sitting at the table with us, so I'll introduce him this evening. So this is Bill Bowen. He is our new Chief Financial Officer. Bill comes to us with well over 25 years experience in government finance. Most recently, he comes to us from Henrico School Division. Before that, he spent several years at Poquoson. So if we can formally welcome him to the team. Welcome. He had a big speech prepared, but I told him we had a lot of topics.
Well, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you on our team. Heard some really great things about you and the expertise you bring to the table, so welcome, and we look forward to working with you. You're usually the go-to for quite a few things in that finance world of what we do, because it really comes down to the bottom line, so thank you.
Thank you.
So before we jump into the presentation, just want to make a quick comment. All of our schools, all 19 of our schools administrators did a fantastic job presenting their school improvement plans to us at the end of the school year. Essentially, they report all of their results to us, strategies that worked and some things they need to work on for next year. So we're really proud of all that work. And I share that because next month we'll be providing an update to the board. Dr. Guy, who's not here this evening, will provide an update to the board of all of our results in September work session. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Carl James this evening. We have several presentations from operations, so I'll turn it over to him for our first presentation, Balancing Elementary Zones. Dr. James.
Thank you, Dr. Shandor. Mr. Medford, members of the board, in April, I presented to the board a brief timeline for the process of balancing elementary attendance zones. So I'll spend a few moments this evening updating you on the progress and where we are on that with this particular topic. As you can see in phase one, that was the request for proposal phase that took place last August. It was August 25th, and went through November. During that phase, we secured a consultant to actually give us options for balancing elementary attendance zones. And then the second phase of that was the data review and plan development, where the consultant used data from us in the York County Geographic Information Department to actually present 4 plans for possibilities or options of balancing the elementary attendance zones. And now, the next phase is what we're about to embark on now, and that's going to be the stakeholder engagement phase, and that's going to kick off this week. And my task there is to identify a diverse group of individuals to serve on the attendance balancing committee. And once that committee is set, we will start, hopefully, a preliminary meeting with all the data review in early September. And this process should go through the end of October. And the end of October, of course, we should finalize recommendations of options to present to the school board. With the options that have been developed, that's just for discussion. And any of those plans can be changed, and we hope to have a meaningful process with individuals throughout the county to actually develop some options for the school board. And the plan is at this point is to bring options to the school board in early November for initial discussion, and then hopefully for approval in December. And if we do have zones approved in September, then the next phase, which is a very important phase, is to engage in a communication plan with our community so they understand what changes have been made to elementary attendance zones, if any. Any questions from the board about the elementary attendance zones?
I just have one. Are we putting that out on our website and maybe putting some type of notice that the school's affected for the parents to be aware that we're doing this in a steering committee so we don't, get caught by the short hairs a year from now and they go, hey, I didn't know about this.
Right, and the plan is to engage the community all the way along. That's why phase was called the stakeholder engagement, to
Right.
engage the entire community, because this is going to affect 9 of the 10 elementary schools. One of them, Bethel Manor, with the options that have been put forth at this point, would not be involved in any type of rezoning or rebalancing.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you, Dr. James. We can move to our second presentation, which is going to be the bus efficiency review.
Thank you once again, Dr. Shandor. The same consultant also developed recommendations for us to look at the efficiency of our bus routes. And in this particular plan or work plan by the consultant, they also looked at the attendance zones or the options that were developed to look at possible bus routes or runs for those particular plans as well. What I'm gonna do this evening is provide you with a summary of the recommendation as it relates to general education from last year and what we're going to do this particular year with our bus routes and our bus runs. And I explain in a minute the difference between a bus route and a bus run. So the consultant used enrollment data from last school year because this work was done last spring and adjusted bus capacities to determine the number of buses that are going to be required for each school. And the reason I use the term adjusted bus capacities, most often with the 77 passenger bus, when we route that bus, we only route it for 70 elementary students and 50 secondary students. And that's for safety reasons. We tell our drivers never to drive a bus when all of the students on that bus will not be seated within the width of a bus seat. Whenever they get to that point, then you need to notify dispatch and say, I'm at capacity, I cannot transport any more students. That's why we reduce those capacities. And we also have some 64 passenger buses in the fleet. And you see the numbers there have been adjusted to 55 and to 40 students, because again, safety is going to be one of our primary considerations when it comes to transporting students. In developing the new routes or runs, we use data provided by the York County Geographic Information System, or GIS it's called, and then York County School Division data. And then we looked at the current routes from last year to develop new routes. And as you know, as part of board policy, to the extent possible, the walking distance for an elementary student should be 1/4 mile, and for secondary students, it should be 4/10 mile, whenever possible. But geographic conditions within a neighborhood is going to determine how far that walking distance actually is, because again, safety is the primary consideration. When we look at drive times and bus routes, we want to plan our routes for a 30-minute drive time from first stop till you get to the school. However, there's about a 10-minute buffer for traffic conditions and weather, because you also know the interval of time between our various levels is 45 minutes. So that's going to help us if we stick to a 30-minute drive time with a 30-second stop time and taking in the buffer for traffic and weather. So with all of that under consideration, the consultant look at an analysis of each elementary school zone and then each secondary zone. Now you see the term runs versus route. For us, a route means a bus, say it's bus 77, I use for example, has a high school run, a middle school run, and an elementary run. So that's a route, and that's the route number that's on a bus. But for each individual school, we call it a run, which is a segment of that route I just described. So we're talking about runs, so that's how it impacts each individual school. Route is all three for that bus. A run is each school individually. So you can see here, it's very interesting. Look at the square miles that we have to cover for our elementary schools. It's quite diverse with to look at the distance, especially when you look at Magruder and you look at Waller Mill and you look at York Elementary. So it tells you a little bit about the number of buses you're going to need to actually deal with the 30-minute drive time I talked about. You also see here I've given the number of runs last school year. And we also see the simulation that was done by the consultant about the number of routes that company would recommend based on our student population. Now that's a computer simulation. You can see the staff recommendation is different. The reason it's different, we have a new transportation software we just implemented this summer, over last spring and this summer. And we use that along with having an experienced driver actually drive each route to look at the geographic conditions. Is there a safe walking area? Is there a curve? where students would be put in danger. So if that's the case, then we will alter the stops and not use the quarter of a mile or the 4/10 of a mile that I talked about earlier, because again, safety is a primary consideration. So when you see that, the green numbers are going to reflect where we had a reduction in the routes, and the red numbers indicate where we had to increase a route. Now, Mr. Doug Mead, following my presentation, will talk to you more extensively about the new transportation software and what that's been able to accomplish. But you can see here, last year for elementary, there were 81 runs. The consultant recommended 72, and the staff recommends 78. Have the same information here for secondary schools, and the number of runs, look at the geographic area, and also the number of runs last year, the consultant's recommendation, as well as staff recommendation. You can see collectively, last year there was 81 routes at the high school. For middle schools, 63 recommended by the consultant, and 70 by staff. Again, I'll go back to whether it's safe to have those stops that far apart because of the geographic conditions within neighborhoods. For high schools, you'll see the same kind of information. The consultant recommended 73 compared to 71, and staff just recommended that we have 70. So it was quite an analysis, and we felt that was very important this year to have experienced bus drivers actually drive the routes and give us feedback, because you can model all this on the computer, but it doesn't tell you the geographic conditions along any route. Any questions about the runs and the number that are being proposed for next year based on the consultant's recommendation, the new transportation software, and staff recommendation based on experienced drivers actually driving those routes?
So are we going to follow the staff recommendation or the consultant recommendation?
The staff recommendations. Because in some areas, you know, there may not be sidewalks, there may be a very deep ditch, there's an extreme curve in the road that would not be safe for students to actually walk.
I want to be sure.
Are we going to buy more buses and hire more drivers?
Like less.
Are we going to have to buy more buses and hire more drivers?
Oh, no, this actually is fewer runs,
Fewer runs.
right? Which we're hoping this will help us with the doubling of some of the situations we had last school year, because we should have an available pool of sub-drivers this year if the numbers stay where they are right now compared to what we had last year. So we're hopeful that that's going to help us with the number of double runs. And another thing I forgot to mention too, we also looked at the routes to try to evenly distribute students across all of the buses for a particular school. And Mr. Mead will talk about some of the things that we're able to accomplish when he talks about the software. Now, another thing I did ask the consultant to do is change the variable or the runtime from 30 minutes to 20 minutes. Because if we were to do that, we could capture 20 minutes in the school day. That was 10 minutes between the high and middle and elementary. If we could actually do that, which will help us with anything we want to do with changing school start times. You can look at this analysis here. Based on the consultant's recommendation, we're going to need 16 buses. 17-passenger bus last year was about $95,000. So if we were to do that, that's $1.52 million. If you look at the staff recommendation, using some of the variables I just talked about, and realizing how compressed that time period is, it would be $3.135 million, because you would need 33 buses. If you ask me if I were to recommend that, I would say safety has to be a priority, not time. Make it that short period of time, then we tell our drivers, you should never rush. Being on time is important. Students need to get to school on time, but they need to get to school safely. So this is just information we had the consultant look at if we were to take a look at a 20-minute run time versus a 30-minute run time.
All right, any questions?
All right, thank you, Dr. James. All right, next we have our new software, IdentiKid, and that's going to be presented by, I believe, Mr. Mead. Is that correct?
Let's run it first.
Oh, I skipped one, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, you're-
Bus routing efficiency,
Transportation, yeah.
yes. And it's still Mr. Mead.
Right.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, Mr.
Sorry
Minister,
about
members of the board, Dr. Shandor. Tonight I'm going to update you on several initiatives that the Department of Information Technology has been working on this summer. And the first one is a project that we've been working on in collaboration with the Department of Transportation. we have been, since last spring, or in fact, actually started in the winter, implementing a new transportation product for our routing and planning purposes. So what we've done so far is we implemented a product called Versatran. We've used it to evaluate all of our bus routes and stops for overall efficiency. So far, we have been able to decrease the overall number of bus routes that we need based on what we were doing last school year. Now, we have based this on standardized walk-to-bus distances, and that's based on school board policy, I think it's EEAB. Safety, we always take in mind safety first, but an elementary walking distance of 0.25 miles, an secondary of 0.4 miles. Now, designated non-transportation zones take priority over these distances. So for instance, a Bethel Manor that is all a walking zone, then these walk-to-bus distances don't apply. All routes and stops were test-driven by experienced drivers with school buses, not just in a car. When you have to make a turn in a cul-de-sac, you want to know that the school bus can make a turn in the cul-de-sac. And that may be different than an automobile. We provided better distribution of our students across the buses so as to minimize crowding on our buses. And we have improved times. It was our goal to improve times across the division and to try to keep them under 30 minutes. And as an example, Tab High School right now, all of our runs are running right at or less than 30 minutes compared to some runs last year that ran as long as 45 minutes. We do have certain geographic areas we simply can't do the bus run in 30 minutes on the north end of the county, but wherever possible, runs have been minimized to being less than 30 minutes. Our new transportation system is going to make transportation a much more open book between web and app-based connections to our system. Starting next week, we are going to launch a product called eLink. On eLink, parents and students can look up bus stop location and time based on their address. You put in the system your grade and your address, and it will tell you where your bus stop is and the time the bus will pick up in the morning and the time the bus drops the student off in the afternoon. Any parent can look that up based on their address and the grade level. Later in the fall, we're going to launch a product called MyStop. It's going to give parents and students, with it, parents and students can track bus locations in real time. So literally on their phone with an app or on their computer with a website, they will be able to see the bus moving down the road and know when the bus is supposed to get there. We're going to be able to integrate that with our automatic calling system so that if a bus is delayed and we need to call parents, we only have to call those parents whose stops have not yet been reached. We don't have to call parents whose students have already gotten off the bus. And parents can actually sign up through the MyStop web application and get real-time alerts when a bus is running late. Taking the concept of the MyStop one step further, it also is going to provide arrival information for our schools. Based off of live GPS data, schools will be able to see in real time when buses are arriving with students in the morning and when buses are arriving back to the school in the afternoon to pick up the students. And it will actually give the schools a color-coded alert, white meaning the bus is on schedule, yellow the bus is running less than 5 minutes late, and red the bus is 5 or more minutes late. So schools can be out front in the school zone with their iPad, and they can be seeing the status of the buses coming to their school. As an example of some of the things that we have done and been able to accomplish, here on the left is a route from the system last year, and on the right you can see a diagram of the route through a neighborhood this year. And you can see we have significantly reduced the number of stops, and overall we have reduced the number of miles that we have to drive. So originally that was a 4.62 mile run. Now it's a 3.31 mile. Well, 1.31 mile savings twice a day for 180 student days adds up to over 470 saved miles in a school year. We reduced the stops from 15 to 9, meaning the bus has to stop 2,100 fewer times in the course of a school year. And we have saved those students over almost 20 hours of time on the bus during the school year. As another example, here was a run and it had 7 stops in it. The original run, there was one point where there were 4 stops in a quarter of a mile. Well, in fact, less than a quarter of a mile, 0.24 miles. We were able to reallocate that, optimize the number of stops, and across the main road there was another bus that was picking up over 70 students, and the bus on the other side of the street was picking up as few as 20. We were able to optimize that, balance the load, so each bus was operating with approximately 45 students. So in addition to being able to reduce the number of stops, we're able to improve the overall balance and the distribution of students on our buses. We are communicating this to parents by every way we know, just short of skywriting it. Postcards are going out via the U.S. Postal Service. We are placing Connect 5 calls to all of our parents. It's on YCSD TV. We're using social media. There's an article in the Citizen News that is just coming out. Notices, drafts of notices have been provided to the schools for them to include in their newsletters and back-to-school information. And transportation staff will be at all school open houses to help parents figure out where their school bus stop is, log in, well, you don't have to log in, but connect to the system for the first time and do the lookup and answer any questions. Any questions on the transportation new system update?
Well, you know I love technology, so work smarter, not harder. So, I mean, it's great to see the systems that are now out there that we can grab onto to make things more efficient. Just to circle back around to, all right, we have apps and technology that not only allow us to figure out where a bus is located, but now we're going to allow students and parents to know where the bus is located while it's making its route. Is that a secure system just for our students and families, or is it an open system that anybody, everybody can watch?
Being able to track a school bus will require you to know a student and certain credentials of that student to be able to connect to and track the bus while that student's on the bus. And it does have a little window because the bus could be running late, so there's a window before and after the actual scheduled time the student should be on the bus, but it is not all day. So when the system says that student should now be off the bus, it will no longer allow the parent to track that bus for the rest of the day, only while their student is supposed to be on that bus.
Okay.
Yes.
I just figured that's a question we may get asked because, security, and I'm not sure what my computer's doing right now. But it's great to know that now if that phone call comes into transportation, the bus hasn't arrived. Well, we have multiple systems now to tell where the
Yes.
bus has been and where it's going. All right.
I just want to make a comment because I know I had a couple calls as a new school board member last year about transportation. We had some glitches there and had some issues, and you certainly addressed them very quickly. So I want to commend staff on that, and also thank the superintendent and staff again for these great tools. That's what I think what the parents were looking for. It's what they were asking for, and they're going to get it. It's great. So thank
Way to
you.
get it, yes.
So have they in the past, the transportation staff, at the back-to-school nights, is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Open
Has that been
house.
done in open house? Has that been done years in the past too? Or is that something?
Yes,
is that
I
a new-
believe so, yes.
has it- It's a great idea. I never really, I didn't know, I hadn't seen them there, so. All right, thank you.
All right, moving along. So another system that we are implementing this year is an Identikid. Identikid has actually been around for several years, but we are implementing a major enhancement to the product. If you've ever visited a school before you were a school board member and had a badge, you were probably asked to sign in. If you've ever gone to pick up a child at school, you sign the child out through the Identikid system. It was our visitor check-in process. Well, this year, we have added to all of our check-in stations, which there's at least one in every school, some have more than one, a driver's license scanner. You can see it circled there in, I think that's green, being that I'm colorblind, I don't think it's a green circle. That's the driver's license scanner. It works with state-issued IDs, not just Virginia's, any state-issued ID. I will tell you, it doesn't work with, at this time, with military or foreign government IDs. They would actually have to be entered manually, but after that, the system works exactly the same. And what it's scanning is what's called the two-dimensional barcode on the back of a driver's license. That's not like a barcode like you would see on a food product in a grocery store that has to be looked up in a database. Embedded in all of those little squares is actually all of the information that is on the back of a driver's license. So it is able to pick out of that information, the person's name and birth date, and that's what it's using. And with that information, it checks everyone coming in and checking into the visitor check-in system. One of the things it can do is it can check you against a no-go custody list. So when the school puts their no-go custody list into the system, if a person comes in and tries to check out a student who's not allowed to, and the school is aware of that and has for instance, a court order on file, it can prevent that from happening. But more importantly, it checks it against the National Sex Offender Public website. It checks the name against aliases and a range of birthdays, and it checks anybody who's checking into the building. One of the side benefits from this as a security measure is, in addition to being able to know who's coming into the buildings, we'll have a nice clean report when there are people in the building. If there is an incident, such as an intruder alert, we'll know who the visitors are in the building, and the school can readily get that list and then be able to account for those people as well as the students and faculty in the building. When a person scans and it finds a match, or what it thinks could possibly be a match, it will display the webcam photo that was taken from the webcam sitting on the computer, and it will display the photo that was found in the sex offender registry. I have, for this particular presentation, blocked out the actual photos to not reveal that here. But as you can see at the top, one of my technicians put in the name Bob, and there actually is a person in the National Registry named Bobby Bob. And they put in the birth date of July the 1st of 1970, and his birthday is June the 17th of 1970. But that was a close enough match for the system to flag it and say, you might want to check and make sure this person is who you think he is. It also will automatically send alerts to school administrators on their email or on their smartphone, so they know that there's somebody in the school front office that's just been flagged as a possible person on the sexual offender registry. We are in the process of updating our superintendent regulation, KK, school visitors, to provide for the ID check, because it's going to be important that if somebody comes in and scans an ID and gets a badge, that the school determines that the person on the badge is actually the person standing in front of them. Otherwise, I could borrow somebody's ID, just go in and scan it, and anybody could be walking into the building. So we're going to provide that in our regulation. We're developing an SOP for the schools on how to handle situations when they find themselves with a person who is on the list and standing at their counter. And we're working with the Commonwealth's attorney, the sheriff's office, and the County Emergency Communications Center on what's going to be the best protocols for addressing that situation. This is just an interesting statistic. We looked at several products. We went with Identikid, but a product that was similar to the Identikid product, they published the statistic that their product is used in 18,000 schools, and there are 35 offenders nabbed on a daily basis across those 18,000 schools. Now, statistically, that's not a lot, but it does happen, and this gives us we can be better prepared to address it. Any questions on Identikid?
Good program.
All right, one more. The internet, perennial subject. So this summer, we upgraded our internet connection yet once again. We were currently operating with the school board office at 1 gigabit, with a 1 gigabit per second connection, and another connection at Tab High School that gave us a total of 2. They were both upgraded to 2 gigabit connections. So this school year, we will be operating with a total of 4 gigabits of bandwidth to the internet, load balanced and redundant. So we load balance between the two, and if one of or the other of those circuits should fail, or the site goes offline off of our wide area network, although it would be slower, all the traffic will be automatically routed to the other one, so nobody actually loses connectivity. Just as an example, the school board office was peaking last spring at 1.07 gig, and Tab High School was peaking at 1.13. And when you talk about internet bandwidth, you really don't want to be at over 100% of your bandwidth. For one thing, the vendor could always shut us down because we're now actually using more than we're subscribed for. And you really don't want to be at 100% in the first place. You want about 10 to 20% to give yourself some capacity at the top to deal with spikes. So when we're actually operating at above 100% capacity, we had an issue and we needed to address it to meet the bandwidth needs of our students and teachers. And I've shown you this slide before, so you can see our bandwidth growth over time from 2009. Now this year, we're finally hitting 2017. We've had that one out there for a while, which is the bar on the far right. And the State Educational Technology Directors Association a few years ago had made the prediction that a school division our size by now would need about 15,000 megabits or 15 gig. We're going to be at 4. I think it might have been a little bit aggressive in its forecast, but clearly we're marching in the direction of what that forecast is. Any questions about internet?
Where are things with us in the infrastructure for fiber optic?
Well, that's in the CIP. I'm not sure which year. It's a couple years out before it comes in the CIP.
So it's still in there?
But it's
kind of
still in there, and should
Okay.
that, yeah. We're having conversations with vendors so that we can be prepared if that comes to pass. And keep in mind, we're only talking about a fiber optic network that would satisfy our interconnectivity between our schools. Our internet connection is still its own thing to get us out to the public internet.
And this new upgrade, how long do you anticipate that could last, or is that just a guess?
Well, the last time we went from 1 gig to 2, and that lasted us for 2 years.
Okay.
Students and teachers seem to constantly find uses for more and more bandwidth. One of the reasons we're probably as we're not approaching the 15 gig as fast as we are, is we have not moved as much stuff into the cloud. You know, there's always a trade-off. The more you put into the cloud, the more bandwidth you have to get to the cloud. So it's never we'll save everything by moving to the cloud, then all of a sudden you've got significant investment in bandwidth.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mead.
Thank you, Mr. Mead. All right, our next presentation, operations update, is going to be delivered by Mr. Greg Dolak, Associate Director of Maintenance and Facility Support. He's going to share some information regarding several projects that were completed this summer. Mr. Dolak.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Would, as Dr. Shandor said, like to update you on some of the things that the Maintenance Department has been doing this summer. We're going to start off with walk-in units and serving lines at Waller Mill Elementary. The walk-in unit there at Waller Mill had some age on it. It was in need of repair. We wanted to try to get that timed in with the renovation last year, but it worked best for us to hold off and wait a summer. So that's being installed now. They are coming back tomorrow to finish the electrical connections on it. We're going to fire it up and cool it down. The serving line that you see there on your right, that's replacing the original line that's there. And while that line served us well, this new line is going to be, more modern, more efficient. And the best part about it, it's a modular unit. So if we do have a component break, we can disassemble that and it rolls and moves. It'll make it much easier for the custodial staff to move it around, do a thorough cleaning underneath, and just provides us with a more energy efficient unit. The next item I'd like to talk about is the security vestibule at Tabb Elementary School. As you know, Tabb Middle School. As you know, we have been adding security vestibules either on their own or been included in building renovations. When we finish this one here, this will be the 8th security vestibule that we've installed in the past couple of years. Mr. Shearhart is also installing one at the renovation in Bethel Manor this summer. And as with the others, the idea of the vestibule is to control visitor traffic, and it's going to eliminate that direct access to the school. So we're going to direct the visitors into the office where they're going to sign in and be met by office staff and find out what their needs are, and then direct it out into the school. And if you look here at this picture on the opposite side, the door on the left, it's a little bit difficult to see because of the glare. There's another door right on the other side of that. For safety, all 3 of those doors open out for emergency egress, and the door on the right with the handle, there will be a badge reader there for staff to be able to come in and badge and go. Bruton High School's track was resurfaced. We finished that this summer. This one is almost an exact copy of what we did at Bailey Field last summer. We milled the original asphalt surface down, replaced it with 1.5 inches of new, and then added 3 layers of the crumb rubber. We also, although it doesn't show in this picture, we did the long jump and high jump event areas. So with this track being done now, all 4 high schools have a newer rubber track surface. Grafton School Complex atrium lighting. As you know, over the years, for science fairs and various events that would be held in the evening or on cloudy days at Grafton, the lighting was not optimal. We did a lighting upgrade several years ago, but it still wasn't providing us with the performance that we needed. What we did this summer is we have installed 10 lights on each side, the middle school atrium and the high school atrium. These are LED lights. They are on a dimmer switch, so we can dim them down. They're energy efficient LEDs. The contractor told me 10 lights on each side only draw 7 amps at full power. So far, the school has not even been using them at full intensity. They probably will as the evening activities pick up. But this does greatly improve the lighting at night and on cloudy days, and even on a sunny day, you can still tell the difference. So we're really looking forward to being able to utilize those atrium areas more. Sidewalk repair has been going on. We've done this the past couple of years. This year, we focused our efforts at Bailey Field, Seaford, and then also at York High School. Grafton High School, room 324. The multiple disabilities room was housed on the middle school side of Grafton Complex. We are moving that multiple disabilities room from the middle school side over to the high school in room 111. And that caused the Project Explorer that was housed in room 111 to find a new home, so we have put them up in room 324. So this was handled in-house by our staff, and we have included facilities for cooking and laundry instruction, things like that. So we have a full-size washer and a dryer. There'll be an oven, a microwave, refrigerator, dishwasher, so all the types of things that Project Explorer will need. And the stations on the left, this picture doesn't show the countertops in yet, but there's 3 stations on the left there that the students can also utilize. And then finally this year, Newport News Water Works approached us last year. They have installed a new water main to the school that is fed off of Falcon and Cook Roads. The old water main was fed off of Route 17. If you remember a few years ago, that line burst unexpectedly. And we were fortunate that the building was only down for about half a day. But that line is older, and it was after that that Newport News came to us. The 2 feeds will actually be a benefit for us. We have 2 different directions they come together. So the situation where we'd have a total shutdown should be greatly diminished. They also, in the process, installed additional fire hydrants for our benefit. And we also upsized the water meters, which those of you who know at York High can sometimes have a little bit of a pressure concern. So we're hoping this will help eliminate that problem. Any questions for this maintenance department?
Y'all work on sidewalks this year.
We're chipping away at them
Yes, pretty much.
and repouring them.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dolak. All right, and our final operations presentation this evening, Mr. Shearhart is going to make his way to the podium, and he is going to share some capital projects construction updates. Mr. Shearhart.
Good evening. I have 3 projects I'll cover this evening here, and we've been a little bit busy. And as I was telling some of the staff members, we have 59 days to turn these buildings around, to take them apart and put them back together. So it's been a little bit of a challenge. The first of these I talked about is Yorktown Elementary School. We, even though a lot of work was going on throughout the entire building, new ceilings, lights, and new cabinets throughout the building, most of the work was at the front of the building, where we actually built the addition on the front with the new offices and the security vestibule in the cafeteria. So the project status is obviously very near completion, since school is going to be here in a few weeks. The roof has been 2/3 replaced. The roofer has been struggling with all the rain here. He's been trying to keep it going. He worked today. He got a lot more done. The windows and walls have all been installed at the front of the building, and the ceiling grid has been installed throughout the building. They've got almost all the lights done. All the lights are in the classrooms. They've just got a few places like closets and things like that, areas like that, they have to install the lights. The HVAC equipment has all been installed and it's ready to start up. So here's a project outlook. We plan to finish the roof replacement, obviously, finish energizing the light fixtures, complete the heating and air conditioning equipment startups. They've almost got the kitchen unit done. They've got some ductwork left to put in there, some diffusers and things like that. They've got the building is completely painted, but they have to do obviously some touch-up painting. We do expect them to be able to move into the building on August 23rd. With the final completion will be September 30th. Now, one thing about this is the gym floor is going to go in after school starts. It's going to go in September 1st. Between then and September 30th, we'll be replacing the gym floor as part of this project. The PE teacher is well aware of this and has already made plans for that. So this is the front of the building, front of the cafeteria. I wish I had a picture of the old cafeteria to show you the difference here, but they've got the new windows in there, and you can see there's some shades above the windows to keep the sunlight from being too brilliant in there since the windows are so large. This is the new main office. It's off to the new front entrance there. There's some dramatic change from what the school had before. You can see the accent wall there in the back, the blue wall there. You can see all the lights are installed and turned on. That is actually the counter in the center of the picture. There's the counter, all the things in the way, and you can't see it clearly. It's a dramatic change, so it's going to be very open now. This is the cafeteria, and you can see a long ways out there is where the new windows are. So it's a long ways from the stage now to the outside of the cafeteria. Hopefully they'll be very happy with this. It's a dramatic amount of light coming into there. Right now they're in the process of putting down the last part of the floor tile. They should have completed that this evening. But the air conditioning's running in there, feels great. The guys love it, working there, putting the tile down. This is one of the classrooms, and you can see in the back here where they've replaced new cabinets and casework. Before they just had a cabinet at the bottom with a sink in it. Now they've got upper cabinets, more storage, and a very large cabinet there on the side that locks for teachers for their belongings and things. You can see the new green accent wall. Some of the colors of the school are green and blue, so that's why the blue in the main office there and the green here. Replaced all the doors. Over the weekend, the contractors replaced all the doors throughout the building. This is one of the restrooms. The old restrooms were an old, gaudy, yellow tile. They were awful. So we've taken that all out, put this nice bright white tile in there and brightened it up, and they've installed the sinks in this area today, so it just looks dramatically better. So that's Yorktown Elementary School. Bethel Manor Elementary School. This is the orange area there is where we focus most of the work at during the summer, but we also did some work there in the cafeteria as well. So this project, again, is very near completion. The roof has been completely replaced there. They're in the process of putting the white cap sheet on top of it to make it more reflective. And they have the metal trim work around the outside of the roof to do there, so the gutters and the downspouts and things like that. The windows and walls are being finished. They have all the window frames in. They have a few pieces of glass to set yet. The ceiling grid has been done in the 400 hall. It's almost been completely done in the 300 hall. There's just a few rooms left there to do. And the lights have been installed everywhere in the 300 and 400 hall classrooms. Again, they have a few closets and things like that that need to have the lights installed in. HVAC equipment has all been installed, and the cafeteria is freezing cold right now because it runs so well. So they're in the process of energizing the light fixtures there. The casework was supposed to be delivered this morning. I was there waiting to take a picture to show it to you, and the truck never showed up. So they are on the slate to show up tomorrow morning. Again, the cafeteria HVAC installation startup is going on. The kitchen, the building, both wings have been completely painted, and they're going to have to do obviously some touch-up painting there. Expected move-in date at this school is also August 23rd, and the final completion of this school date is September 17th. So this is what it looks like it's going on. Now this picture shows all the classrooms with the new window frames installed. I wish I had a picture here to show you what it looked like without everything there. It just was open gaping holes in there. But they've installed the frames here, And then this is what it looks like on the inside here. They enclosed around some of the windows here. We gave the teachers more space to put put up additional whiteboards and bulletin boards on both sides of the windows. So you can see the rooms are plenty bright, even though we did take some of the windows out. This is the security vestibule at Bethel Manor. So the outside doors, pretty much mirrors the outside doors. So this is all set, ready to go. They put the glass in it today. I don't know if you can tell the glass is missing in this picture, but they inserted the glass there today, and it's ready to go. This is a picture of the 200 hall at Bethel Manor. And most of the work we did was on the 300 and 400 halls. We actually tore the roof completely off of the 300 and 400 halls. But the roof on the 200 hall wasn't that bad, and we felt like if we just went ahead and coated it very similar to what we did at Grafton Complex, we could make that roof last for another 20 years. Well, that's the last slide for Bethel Manor. Now I wanted to talk about Grafton School Complex. So both the high school and the middle school roof repairs are complete. Both roofs have been coated, and the contractor's in the process of doing some touch-up work on the roof. The manufacturer has been inspecting the finished product, and the coating substantial completion is planned for August 11th. Now again, they've had to deal with the rain too, so they're not quite done. Well, they're done coating the roof, but they're not done with all the touch-up. We will receive a 20-year warranty on this roof, so hopefully we won't have any issues with this roof for a long time. This is what the roof looks like now. It's snow white on the high school and middle school sides. I walked through the building on Saturday afternoon after we had all that tremendous amount of rain last Friday and Saturday, and I didn't find a drop of rain in that building. I checked every spot that typically leaked, and there was absolutely nothing in the building from the roof. And that'll be my last slide for this evening. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions? I mean, as the public, you know the academic world is always gearing up in this summer to get ready for the kiddos to show up on the first day of school. But the operations side, to compliment Dr. James and your entire team of everybody that has presented tonight and the people that work with them, fabulous. I mean, it's good for the public to hear that there's so much that has to go on in, what was it, 58 days? 59? You know, that little short window, and weather permitting and the trucks show up when they're supposed to and things like that, everything completes itself. But just to get ready for the academic part of what happens, there's so much behind the scenes that's going on. Some you can see visually, some you don't. So hats off to the entire team. Great job.
Well, we're excited. This Thursday, we have another opportunity for board members to walk both of those buildings, Bethel Manor and York Elementary School. We'd love to have you join us for that walk. Ms. Skinner and I went this past week to York Elementary, and then we went last week as well. So what I can tell you is the 300 and 400 hallways of Bethel Manor are beautiful. The teachers are going to be ecstatic, and the kids are going to absolutely love it. Those windows were awful, and so we're thrilled that that's done. York Elementary is going to be beautiful as well when it's complete. When you walk into that school, it's completely different. So we're really looking forward to welcoming students back in a few weeks. And Grafton High School, I need to say this, it will be really nice to sit a graduation speech and have the students not mention the roof leaking. So maybe that will happen in like 4 years once the ninth graders come through there. So we've done a good job over there with that roof.
Excellent. Well, our last item, thank you, very good job. Staffing report. Yes, we do have staff, lots of staff.
So Dr. Carroll, Chief Human Resource Officer, is going to present an update on current staffing levels for the 17-18 school year. Dr. Carroll?
Thank you, Dr. Shander. So annually, I come out and let you know at this work session on how we're doing. Attached in board docs, you'll see a spreadsheet that I'll be working from. The left side of the sheet is about licensed openings that we had this year and our current openings, and on the right side is the non-licensed. So when we look at the licensed positions, the first thing I'd call your attention to was the amount of resignations and retirements. We've had a heavy year this year with attrition. The last 2 years, we've had some really good years. So this may just be the law of averages kind of catching up with us. I'll be reporting to you in the fall about what the reasons for people leaving. But this has been a heavier year, which has put more of a load on my staffing office for replacing staff. However, you'll see that the retirements are roughly the same. So the difference is in resignations, and it's about a third more. And when you dig into the numbers a little more, you see that it's teachers that have left the division more so with resignations. Next, you would move down to the promotions and moves within the division. Those are roughly the same, 7 last year, 5 this year. A little drop in the internal APs to principals, but we only had 3 principalships to fill this year. 1 was internal, 2 were external. We feel good about all 3 of those candidates that we've brought into those positions. Finally, the important thing is where are we going to be as the school year commences after Labor Day? And right now, we're right about where we were last year. Last year at this time, we had 12 openings, and this year we have 11.4. That 0.4 is a part-time PE position at one of the high schools. The content areas that I've listed below are the positions where we have more than 1 opening in that content area. And as you can see, last year we had 2 English and 3 math positions. The math was very concerning at this point last year, but we did fill all those. We had all of our special ed filled at this time last year, but then within the 2 weeks before school started, we had 4 openings pop up, which made it difficult to fill, and we did not get them all filled until the spring semester. This year, we're in a little bit of a different boat. We have, of the 9 positions that I've listed for you there, 7 of them are special ed. This is mirroring a situation that we're seeing all across the region and the state, is that special ed teachers are getting harder and harder to find. 7 positions open is concerning, but we'll do what we can to fill those as we come towards day one. This will, because of this reason in the fall, I'll be getting a group together to make some consideration for maybe some centralized hiring next spring for special ed so that we can get ahead of this, because I don't see this problem getting any better in the out years. At this time, did anybody have any questions about the licensed staffing? Okay. On the right side, I've gone a little more in depth than I did last year. We see a little bit of the same trend, whereas the retirements stayed roughly the same for non-licensed, with a slight increase in resignations. And the areas where we see the most resignations, or the bigger gap, was clerks and secretaries. You can see there were 5 more than there were last year, and 4 more paraeducators. So those are the differences. As we work down to promotions, we had less promotions in the non-licensed side. You know, that just really depends on individuals and what positions come open. You'll see that we had no paraeducators move up to the teacher position, which is something that we encourage, and we even have changed policy in the last year to even more so encourage it. We have approved or hired a few in the last, I think it was 7 across the last 2 years. So that, you know, we have had that happen, and maybe this year was just an anomaly. We'll see. When you look down at the current non-licensed openings, once again, we're right on target with where we were last year. We have 1 less opening. And when you look down to the bottom where there are paraeducators, this is the time where principals really dig in and start making para hires. And so those are starting to come in now. So I don't see any problems with those positions getting filled. You do see an asterisk there. You have 35 total positions and 10 for bus drivers. And you know bus drivers has been an issue in the past. But I can say that based on the report that you heard earlier tonight with the efficiency, right now we're projecting that we're not going to hire any more bus drivers because we already have enough staff to cover everything with a substitute pool. So while in this report it says 35, it really could be 25. And that's a big difference over the last few years. So I'm excited about that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions? Jim? All right. For further updates on that. Yeah. All right, well, that concludes our presentations this evening. Does any board member have anything else before we go into our needed closed session this evening? All right, then I need a motion to move us into closed session, please.
He's got the narrative.
I got it. Mr. Vice Chair, I move the York County School Board convene in closed session to discuss a personnel matter pursuant to personnel exemption, section 2.23711A1 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Do I have a second?
Second.